out on the backfields in Owings Mills. Any breaking news, you'll get that first on the WNST text service, brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Of course, our Twitter will be alive with all of that. On the other side, the Lions just had their feet up with a little mini post-Thanksgiving turkey bye, but certainly the eggnog was curdled on Thanksgiving Day with a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Going to be interesting to see how the Lions respond to that, coming in with Matt Stafford here this week as the Ravens are on short rest after another choppy offensive effort against the Texans on Monday night. This guy covers the National Football League and the Detroit Lions from the inside. He is a senior writer and insider at Lions.com. You can follow him out on Twitter as well, and tens of thousands do at Twentyman. That's 20 like the number MAN. He is Tim Twentyman, one of our returning champions here from Motown. What's going on? We don't get to see the Lions too much here every 4 years or thereabouts, and still waiting on Matthew Stafford to be something other than the guy they say, well, he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. That's all that sort of follows him around, and I know that's sort of a heavy burden when the team's 6-5.
It is. He's got a nickname that some people here call him Statsford. You always hear, a lot of the first, he's got the most passing yards of any quarterback under the age of 30. He just, did that on Thanksgiving passing Peyton Manning, but there's no playoff wins in that resume. And so while stats are great, as well as I know that elite quarterbacks and great quarterbacks are determined in January, in February, when you're playing in those games and winning in those games, and Matthew Stafford has to start doing that in year 9.
Well, and I guess this is part of that run, right? Like where this will either be a successful year and you'll play a game in January or not. Clearly that loss on Thanksgiving Day was devastating in regard to that, and a loss here in a road game where you don't have a running game and the defense here has been a little stingy of late. This is a really, really big 6-5 game on your side of the fence because the NFC is so tough right now.
Yeah, it is so tough. I mean, at 6-5, the Lions are sitting in the number 8 seed in the playoff picture, and unfortunately for them, you referenced the mini bye they had this weekend, but they sat back and they watched Carolina win and Atlanta win, and some of the teams that are in front of them, Seattle win, and those are some teams that they need to see losses. Lions have an easier schedule than all of those teams down the road, minus that Baltimore team this weekend who looked good on Monday night, especially defensively. And so, this is a huge ball game for the Lions. If they can go on the road and sneak one out here, then they've got Green Bay minus Aaron Rodgers, they hope. You've got Chicago, you've got Cincinnati, you've got some winnable ball games against some teams that don't have some great records. So it really comes down to this one. If the Lions are going to get to 11 wins, which I think you might have to do in the NFC this year, this one's vital. I don't think you want to lose this one, be forced to have to win your last 4 games, and 10 wins might not get it because they already have losses to Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans. So if it's a tiebreaker scenario, Lions are on the short end of the stick here. So this is a huge game for them on Sunday.
Tim Twentyman covers all things Detroit Lions out on Twitter at Twentyman as well as at Lions.com. He's a senior writer and insider there. You've been there long enough and watched this offensive line, and I know they signed Ricky Wagner away from here. So much of this has been about, we believe we have an elite quarterback in Stafford. We have capable wide receivers in a passing game, but at some point, we need to run the football. And, I'm sure you got a load of the Ravens on Monday night as well. The offense is choppy at best around here based on the offensive line and the injuries we've had. But when you can't run the football, it's really hard to be a great quarterback.
Well, I think your room for error is gone when you can't run the football. This team goes as Matthew Stafford's right arm goes. And when he's off, they don't have anything that they can, rely on in terms of a run game. They've shown some signs of it here and there this year, but certainly not consistent enough. They only average 78 yards per game on the ground. That's 30th in the NFL. And here's a statistic for you that will show you how little of help Matthew Stafford has gotten in his career. He came into the league as a number 1 pick in 2009. That's 9 years now. He has had a 100-yard rusher in a game 7 times. Think of that statistic. 7 times in 9 years, Matthew Stafford has been helped out with a 100-yard rusher. They haven't had one since Reggie Bush in 2013. That anniversary was 4 years ago yesterday. And so there's just been an ongoing problem in Detroit. They can't figure it out. And until they do, I think it's going to be tough to win those games in January, February, like you talked about.
I heard that stat that Caldwell hasn't had a 100-yard rusher since he's been there. But more than that there's like some wacky stat that goes back to Barry Sanders and 100-yard games. I mean, that was 1998, man.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and it's really been inconsistent since then. Having a 1,000-yard rusher. They had one in Reggie Bush in 2013, but then you got to go back into 2004 was the last time. Kevin Jones, that they had a 1,000-yard rusher before that, 2013 season with Reggie Bush. And it's been a problem. I think this is a team that's built, they throw the football to set up the run. It's not the other way around. They're just not built that way. Now, they went out and got Rick Wagner. You referenced that. They went out and got TJ Lang from Green Bay, and it just hasn't come together. Now, Taylor Decker, their talented left tackle, missed half the season. He's kind of rounding back into form. This will be his, third game back, and so they hope that that's, going to start to be, turned into some really consistent good play on the left side. But it's been an issue, and they can't seem to figure it out for whatever reason, and it's really hurt this team because it's Matthew Stafford, that right arm, or it's nothing.
He is Tim Twentyman. You can find him out on Twitter at T20man. That's 20 like the number and MAN. He's at the Detroit Lions website and covering all things Honolulu Blue. Along with that silver, they're going to be coming in here for the 1 o'clock kick on Sunday. All of our WNST programming this week brought to you by our friends at Compass Point Golf Course down in Pasadena, the best place to play this fall and winter. Now, I know there's a little chill in the air, but you don't need to have a parka on. First decent day, there is a course close to home for you. It's at compasspointgolf.com. And, of course, Robert Kennedy will be joining us each and every week talking all things local college basketball. So we're into that. Also, make sure you're giving the King a ring here during the holiday season. I got to get over there to get some tequila and some Malbec myself. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get to Rosedale and give the King a ring. You see Paul King, tell him it's time for him to get on Facebook. He'll laugh. Tim Twentyman is here from Detroit. Defensively, my man, so much around Haloti Ngata, and around here, we're missing the old friend, and I know the parting is such sweet sorrow for all these guys, whether it's Rick Wagner, even Jim Caldwell, or Haloti Ngata. There's a whole lot of former Purple over there on the defensive side of the ball and the coaching staff as well. In the case of Ngata, very effective, right, on the backside of Sue, pound for pound, dollar for dollar. But at this point, Haloti Ngata's not on the field, and the Lions really miss him, right?
Yeah, they do. The first 5 games of the season, and you guys know him really well there. Now, he wasn't the, mid-form all-pro player he was here. He came here at the later stage of his career, but you guys know, how tough he is in the middle, how good of a run stopper he can be. In those first 5 games before, he had the bicep injury and was placed on IR, Lions were allowing less than 80 yards per game on the ground. That number has doubled the last 6 games since he's been out. And so, they are certainly missing that big presence. He takes on double teams there. He lets linebackers behind him flow north and south, and they've kind of struggled to fill that role since he's gone. So, even at 34 years old and 10 plus seasons in the league, he was doing his job as a kind of a blocking occupier and a guy who allowed that defense to play well up front, and they've missed him.
For you, with the best player on this team not named Stafford, I keep hearing about these guys in the secondary. I find this to be an interesting matchup because the Ravens have had trouble throwing the football to begin with. Joe has been a little errant at various points, and receivers have been miscommunicating at various points. I do fear the secondary more than most that I've seen lately.
Yeah, if Joe's miscommunicating on Sunday, Mr. Darius Slay or Mr. Glover Quinn might pick him off, and they know what to do with it once they do as well. Look, this is a very opportunistic Lions defense. They rank up there in the top 5 in terms of takeovers. They've got over 10 interceptions in 11 games. So they get one just about every game. And Glover's one of the best safeties in the NFL that you probably never heard of. Only Richard Sherman, dating back to 2014, has more interceptions than Glover Quinn. And so, Darius Slay is up there in the Pro Bowl voting. I think players and fans are starting to take notice of him too. And so those are 2 guys especially that have been playing well this year. And, when teams have thrown at them, they've been opportunistic in terms of taking it over, like Baltimore has been very, very good at too. So I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic. 2 of the top, teams that take the football away from opponents, who can do it more. I think that's going to be a big one on Sunday.
So much riding on the season here, and Case Keenum's kicking everybody's butt in the division. I know that's shocking, and we just had the Houston Texans come through here, so everybody in Houston in the media that I've spoken with knows Case Keenum as well. This was a real lost opportunity for the Lions, at least to win the division in a year when Aaron Rodgers went out, and I know that must be the greatest source of frustration for everybody involved there, that the door was kicked open with his injury.
It was, and this is a Lions team that has not, won the division since 1993. They haven't had a home playoff game since 1993, and so you looked at some of the injuries and some of the opportunities that were there, and now obviously it's not over yet. The Vikings have a 3-game lead with 5 to go. They do play Carolina. They do play Atlanta their next 2 weeks. But it's funny because Detroit's in an odd situation. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want Atlanta and Carolina to win those games and, maybe keep you in hunt for the division? Or do you want to say, hey, let's just get to the show, get to the playoffs, and get in? And you want Minnesota to beat Carolina, Atlanta, 2 teams that have already beaten you, who are ahead of you in playoff seeding. And so I think Lions fan right now is kind of in a dilemma. What do they want to do? My opinion is, you look what the Giants have done. You look what some of the number 6 seeds have done in the past, going on to win Super Bowls. You just got to get in. And so I think if you're the Lions, you're Minnesota Viking fans. 3 games back with 5 to go. I think you want the Vikings to beat up, on Atlanta, on Carolina, on Green Bay, knock them out of it so you don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers having his Willis Reed moment week 17 at Ford Field. And so, but it's an interesting dilemma because you still technically have a shot at it, but what do you want to get done as Lions fan? Playoffs or is the division still a goal for you?
I guess when it comes to running the football and the troubles of running the football, and again, we have our own issues around here, this is sort of a little bit of a league-wide problem, and bad quarterbacking and quarterbacks who have skill sets like Flacco and Stafford don't have the pieces around them, and the game's gotten so fast, and even these old guys like Terrell Suggs running around chasing quarterbacks at the age of 35. It has not been a spirited year for offense, and I think for both of these teams and both of these teams' fan bases, they say, well, we have a $25 million quarterback, and we have a so-and-so wide receiver and a first-round pick here, and we just signed a tackle there, and we spent some money. It really is a great source of frustration when you have a quarterback that can do it. I mean, look, we're going to see Deshaun Kaiser here this month. We're going to see Jacoby Brissett. We just saw Brett Hundley last week and Tom Savage on Monday night. I've seen some bad quarterbacks, but it's even more frustrating when you have a good one that can't get out of your own way.
Yeah, and it is. And I think what we talked about off the top with the run game, you guys struggling to do it, the Lions struggling to do it. I think just the way this league is set up, how defensive players are so big, in fact, how schemes are so complicated. If you're just one-dimensional, I think teams can scheme you so well. Defensive players can get after you so well, especially those guys, some of the freaks that we've seen up front along the defensive line. They know you're throwing. If you're in throwing situations, it's tough to get those guys blocked out. And so, I think, Baltimore and Detroit are having some of the kind of same struggles. Now, when you're balanced, when play action is part of it, there's no one fearing Detroit's play action right now. Amir Abdul is averaging 3.2 yards per carry. They're not getting yards on the ground. I think it's the same problem in Baltimore, some of the games that I've seen, self-scouting this week. And so I think you got 2 teams that have good quarterbacks, that have good weapons, but they're very one-dimensional, and I think it's tough to win and tough to be successful on offense in this league when you're one-dimensional.
Tim Twentyman covers all things Detroit Lions as the senior writer and insider. You can follow him at T20man out on Twitter as well. All of our WNST programming this week brought to you by Lee Tessier and his team at Keller Williams American Premier Realty. List your house with him and risk nothing at all. His team will get your house sold. Good folks up there in the Abingdon area doing all things Northeast Side. Lee Tessier, that's TESSIER.com to learn more about his team at Keller Williams American Premier Realty. Also brought to you by our friends at Deli Ish on Wise Avenue in Dundalk. They're catering in for the holidays at DeliBaltimore.com. That is a New York-style deli with Reuben's, corned beef, and legit sandwiches right over there near Patapsco High School called the Curly Fryer. We got to get a Dundalk Al on that thing there, too. Don't forget they're catering in Deli Ish on Wise Avenue in Dundalk and DeliBaltimore.com. Tim, I guess we talk about what teams are going to get there and what teams aren't going to get there. I'll say this. These teams on Sunday are probably going to produce a pretty ugly football game, right? Like, from all the things we talk about with bad offenses and defenses that want to take the ball away, there might be some defensive celebrating going on, but offensively, we're not expecting this to look like ballet on Sunday.
No, especially with, the way Baltimore's playing defense right now. That being said, it's in Joe Flacco. It's in Matthew Stafford. I've been covering football as you have long enough to know that when you think you're going to get one of those 17-14 games, you get 42-34 and everything starts clicking. And so, a special teams play here or there. But yeah, I do expect a lower scoring game, even though, Detroit does have some weapons. Marvin Jones Jr., second in the NFL, 8 receiving touchdowns. He leads the NFL with 5 touchdowns of over 20 yards. So that's obviously somebody, Baltimore's going to have to know where he is. And then you've got Kenny Galladay. He leads all rookies with 4 catches of plus 40 yards. So, look, the Lions can get vertical, and they got some guys that can get down the field and make plays. And then all of a sudden, when you're thinking about that, you've got Theo Riddick and you've got Golden Tate, guys that are terrific run after the catch guys. So, look, Detroit's going to try to spread them out. They're going to take shots down the field. If they hit on those, we could see a higher scoring game. If Baltimore doesn't tackle Theo Riddick or Golden Tate very well, we could see some big plays there. So, it's hard to tell. I think going in, you think it's going to be, a defensive game with some of the offensive struggles we've seen from both teams, but you just never know. What I have to ask, what's the long range forecast there for Baltimore? It just so happens to be 64 degrees in Detroit today. I'm curious what it is on Sunday.
Well, I mean, we were in the upper 30s by the end of the game on Monday night. It was chilly outdoor winter 4-layer kind of football, on Monday. And obviously a night game, it's a little bit different. But, the one thing we've had here, and I know you saw this on Monday night, was, an empty stadium. I mean, 30,000 people stayed away. So, I mean, coming into this being the road hornet's nest of loud Ray Lewis dancing and not being able to hear cadence and drawing, penalties, that's not the Ravens' home mojo here. And that's kind of sad to say, because Stafford's not going to have to work in those kind of sort of traditional circumstances here this weekend, because our fans have kind of given up on the team, or I don't know what. I don't know. I'm researching that as a fan and a business owner this week, and a guy who loves Baltimore sports and is tied to it, and a guy that watched our team walk out of town when I was a kid, and come back here the last 20 years. It's really weird, but that part of the home field advantage doesn't exist right now in Baltimore.
Well, it's certainly, great news for Matthew Stafford. It's interesting. Lions have played much better on the road this year than they've played at home. Look, they're 2-4 at home. They've only lost 1 game on the road. So, they've played well on the road in that environment. Now, this is a dome team going outside. Now, Jim Caldwell always likes to say he's an indoor team with an outdoor mentality. But, cold, precipitation, those things Lions don't deal with a whole lot, and so those could play factors into the game. But
by the way, I got the forecast. Mid-50s, sunny, 10% chance of precipitation, winds from the northwest at 12 miles. So you could have a little bit of wind, but this will not be a snow globe game. Let's put it to you that way.
No, and then they're, edge Matthew Stafford, I think, with some of the weapons that they have offensively, how they can spread you out, go down the field like I talked about. Can't run the football, but look, they go as Matthew Stafford goes, and he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. When you give him time to throw, he can make all the throws. And he's shown that he can win a game for you. And so those are obviously ideal conditions for him. And he's going to face a Baltimore defense that's very, very tough. They can get after the quarterback, and it should be a good matchup on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, rest up, man. We'll make sure you don't eat any tourist crab cakes when you get into town here. We'll send you someplace good, all right?
Appreciate you, buddy.
Tim Twentyman, the man covering the Detroit Lions, is their senior writer out there at DetroitLions.com. You can follow him on Twitter. Tens of thousands do at T20Man on Twitter. You can find me out in the bayou, Toyota.com, audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally, 7 a.m., bright and early every single morning, just like the morning sun. except we're hoping not to set. Yeah, there you go. It's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. $10 a month, never any commitment. Learn more at planetoftriumphs.com. Every Thursday, we do the SSV on WNST here from 3 until 5. That is Dennis Colatzos. They sponsor our WNST tech service as well at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. If there's any breaking news between now and Sunday's game time off the backfields in Owings Mills, you're going to get that first. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by DNL Window Tinting. That's 26 years of tinting everything. Cars, boats, businesses. They put the shades on the sun. They take away the squint. They're in Parkville and in White Marsh. DNL Window Tinting, our friends and dear sponsors. Get it done this holiday season with them. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If you have any feedback on the crowd stuff that I've talked about and going to the games, not going to the games, obviously you can throw me an email anytime, nasty@WNST.net. And all of my social media has been sort of alive with it this week. I'm trying to sort of process it, to write about it a little bit. I don't know how more to tackle issues in my world as a writer than writing about it. It's even more effective than going on the radio and bitching about it, or the internet for that matter. But I'm trying to organize it in some fashion that's probably going to look like a mini-series by the time it's all over with, because I think this thing's thick with a lot of social issues, a lot of political issues, a lot of local issues, a lot of national issues, a lot of financial issues, a lot of passion and community and civics, and it's thick. The more I think about it, the more I read about it, the more I talk about it, the more you write me about it. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.